I killed a man. Afterward, they told me that it wasn't my fault, and that anyway, it was nothing new. It had happened before, it has happened since, and believe me, it will happen again. This quote was uttered by boxer Roger Donahue after he fought fellow boxer George Flores in 1951. During the fight, Donahue punched Flores so mercilessly and with such force that shortly after the bout was over, Flores went into a coma. He never woke up again. This horrifying scenario, the sight of one man literally beating another man's brains out, is what boxing is all about. What's even more frightening is that many, many other fighters have suffered the same fate as George Flores. In fact, as Time magazine reported, in the last decade, over 70 boxers have died from boxing-related causes. Moreover, at least 15% of all boxers, even if they don't die, incur irreversible brain damage. Growing up, like most of you, I watched boxing, and sometimes I even enjoyed it. But as I recently watched Mike Tyson pummel Frank Bruno into submission in a heavyweight championship fight, I began to wonder what possessed one man to beat another with such force and without remorse. In answering my audience analysis questionnaire, most of you said the sport of boxing was violent, that the decision to fight should be left up to the individual. However, I'm here to show you that the choice cannot be left up to the individual, who probably has been swayed by the chance for fame and fortune. The evidence against boxing is shocking and overwhelming, and tonight, I hope to convince you that all states should ban the sport of boxing because it damages its participants and our society. For decades, experts have warned us about the dangers of fighting. As long ago as 1928, Dr. Harrison Martland published the first article regarding the dangers of boxing in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Today, the American Medical Association argues that the principal purpose of a boxing match is for one opponent to render the other injured, defenseless, incapacitated, and unconscious. Boxing, as a throwback to uncivilized man, should not be sanctioned by any civilized society. Even heavyweight champion Mike Tyson said, "This is a hurt business. When you see guys like Trump, Kennedy, and Rockefeller come to a fight, regardless of what they may represent, they come to see someone get hurt. And my objective is to inflict as much punishment as possible." But why all the warnings? Boxing can cause irreparable physical damage to its participants. A punch thrown by a heavyweight can land with a force exceeding 1,000 pounds, which causes the head to snap back or twist violently, forcing the soft brain to be rammed into the rigid skull like a yolk slammed to the side of an egg. The nerve cells and blood vessels in the brain are then twisted, ruptured, and stretched, which causes swelling. This results in the brain pressing against the inside of the skull. A blow to the head so that consciousness is lost causes minute or larger hemorrhages, contusions at the base of the brain, and a tearing of nerve fibers that cannot be easily identified. These symptoms are not detectable by the victim of the beating. Neurologist McDonald Critchley states that a boxer's chances of suffering brain damage increases in proportion with the number of bouts fought. Another neurologist, Dr. Jan Corsellis, examined the brains of 15 boxers who died of natural causes. He observed a pattern of abnormal cerebral changes not present in non-boxers. Subsequent studies have shown that boxers are also far more likely to suffer from another type of brain damage called cavum septi pellucidi, which occurs when a boxer receives a blow to the brain. A cave or space will develop between the two membranes that divide the brain. Many boxers who have this ailment suffer permanently with symptoms similar to the brain disorder Parkinson's disease. This disease develops when the brain ceases to produce sufficient amounts of dopamine, a substance that helps in the transmission of nerve impulses involved in motor control. Perhaps the most poignant example, because he was so admired for his once strong body, is the case of Muhammad Ali. In his prime, Ali was glamorized, but he now suffers from a severe case of Parkinson's disease. Ali's side effects are impaired hand-eye coordination, slurred unintelligible speech, reduced muscle strength, and chronic fatigue. Ironically, Ali became a victim of the sport he once saved. Ali, once the unbeatable heavyweight champion, the force who claimed that boxing never scarred his pretty face, has been reduced to a mere shell of a man. A shaking, silent reminder of the brutality of boxing, a brutality which does not discriminate on the basis of race, creed, or religion. Not only is boxing dangerous to its participants, but it can hurt our society as well. Boxing influences how violent some spectators become. According to David Phillips, a sociologist at the University of California, homicides increase dramatically after every nationally televised broadcast fight. Sadly, inner-city minority teens are the real victims, who learn that the way to success is to emulate the violence condoned by boxing. According to the Saturday Evening Post, kids even drop out of school to become professional fighters. What awaits them is a future filled with punishment and abuse, while only a handful of fighters will go on to make the millions of dollars that are so glorified by our society. Of all athletes to emulate, the last one should be boxers, who get rich without an education and achieve heroic status through violence. Of all sports to emulate, why boxing, where the object is to move your opponent closer to death? You've heard how boxing causes physical and mental damage to its participants and about the negative effects it has in our society. So now let's take a look at the solutions. The best solution is to ban the sport of boxing. All 50 states should pass resolutions to abolish this barbaric sport. Granted, there's a lot of money invested in the sport, but can we put a price on a human life? The American Medical Association strongly supports this proposal and has attempted time and again to eliminate boxing. AMA President Dr. Joseph Boyle called their resolutions to abolish the sport a statement that's about as strong as it can get. Elsewhere, people also recognize the need to eliminate this dangerous sport. In 1969, Sweden banned pro boxing, but the U.S. has done nothing despite all of the evidence levied against boxing. Just as Sweden has survived without it, so can we. Even world-renowned sportscaster Dick Enberg, who has spent his career watching sporting events of all kinds, couldn't think of a reason to continue the sport. In fact, in a recent speech given last week here on campus, Enberg said that while the goal in other sports is to defeat the opponent by scoring more points, the goal in boxing is to hurt, knock out, and incapacitate the other competitor. Though he possessed admiration for the fighters, Enberg felt there was no justification for the sport. For the sake of fighters and for the sake of our society, it's important for us to take a stand against this brutal activity. So in conclusion, boxing is unquestionably a dangerous and often deadly sport and must be banned. The goal of a boxer is to destroy another human being. How many more fighters must be rendered permanently injured or killed in the ring before we put an end to this deadly sport? The next time you turn on the television or read the paper, you just might hear of someone suffering the same tragic fate as George Flores. Unlike other deaths we read about, this one will have been different. It will have been endorsed by our society, and thousands of people will have cheered for the killer and paid big money to watch the killing happen, all in the name of sports entertainment. As we've seen, in boxing, there are no winners. Let's stop the madness before someone else loses. Let's ban boxing before someone else does.